and welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself first?
My name is Etta Grace. I am a YA fantasy author, and I'm here today to talk about my upcoming debut, Runaways. It's a fantasy book about a girl named Hannah who goes to the mysterious and dangerous worlds of the Seelie and Unseelie courts to rescue her sister from the Pied Piper. So thank you so much, Remilia, for having me on today.
Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview or author chat more than
I'm
interview.
so excited.
So for the people watching, this is kind of like an interview, but a bit less formal. Kind of like a coffee chat combined with an interview.
All right, let's get started.
I think we have two main topics. Today we have Runaways, your book in inspiration, and also some author life things. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with your book or?
We can start with the author life stuff. That's what I had written down first.
Yeah, I think I have it first too. Because you're doing a lot of other things while writing, many normal people do. But I know I've seen you talk about you studied for a while full-time while writing and also working full-time while still having a blog, and you're doing other things related to your writing. So I was wondering how you balance everything.
It's a little bit balancing and a little bit sprinting at one thing part of the time and then dropping it all and then sprinting at the other thing part of the time. So it's less of a balancing act and more of chasing whatever I currently have time for, or whatever has my interest at the moment. So yeah, I currently work full-time as a research chemist, and that's my day job. But before that, I was a full-time college student with 18 credit class load as a chemical engineer. And before that, I was an AP high school student with a ton of clubs, and I did work study, and I had co-ops and internships over the summer. So I've always kept myself very busy. And aside from that, I try to keep somewhat of a social life with my friends playing D&D games, trying not to be a complete hermit, although, I don't always do the best of that. But yeah, so my strategy would be, at least when I was in high school and in college, I would try to focus on my studies during the semesters. My logic was I'm paying to be here. I don't want my money to go to waste. I can't afford to fail my classes. I'm here on scholarships. I need to keep my priorities straight. So during the semesters, I would kind of drop writing altogether. I would basically not set any word count goals. I would count it as a win if I could write one word, a day. Very low bars. I've seen people talk about if you can just write 100 words a day or 200 words a day, have consistency. Out the window during the semester. Not happening at all in the slightest. We're engineering students. That's not a priority right now. But then during breaks, over summer break, over winter break, when the semester wasn't going on, and I had a little bit more free time if I was at home and I had my parents to cook, or I could offload some chores onto siblings, or I had a more consistent schedule with the job, then I could focus more on writing. And then I would write completely in sprints of 2,000 words done in a day or 5,000 words done in a day. And I would make up for the time that I lost during the semester. And so there would be this feast or famine dynamic when I was in school. Now that I have a job, I have a 9 to 5, my routine is a lot more regular. I'll go to work, I'll get up in the morning, I'll get ready for work with my husband, and then I get home, I make dinner with my husband, I relax with him for a bit, and then he's a gamer, so he'll play Red Dead on the couch or something. I'll sit next to him on my laptop and I'll write or work on blog posts for a bit and do whatever it is that I need to do. And then around 10 o'clock, we'll both put down our things and spend some time together, watch TV, play with my cat, who is very loudly meowing at the door. And then we'll go to bed whenever we're ready and get up for work the next morning. So now that I have a day job, my schedule's a lot more consistent. But when I was a student, that wasn't really a factor. So every time in your life is a season, and you need to be realistic about what you can accomplish and not beat yourself up for that, and not try and measure your productivity against other writers who are in a different season of their life.
I think that's really, I will take that advice, because I am also very much in your, I'm not studying, but I am very much doing a lot and then doing nothing.
You have to find the strategy that works for you and not compare yourself, because that's the real struggle.
It is. But it's also like nice to like hear other people's perspective and what they're doing, to have something to work from. Like take the inspiration out. Okay, I can try this, or I can try this and see what works.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very blessed that right now with my job, some people have really tough jobs that leaves them completely drained after work, or they have a really long commute. I'm married, but I don't have kids right now. And so like after work, I can just come home and relax. So I probably have the most free time right now out of my entire life that I'll ever have to write. So I'm very blessed and I'm very thankful that I'm in this period of my life that I can write as much as I can. But not everyone is in that position. So, try and give yourself grace if you're in the position where you can't write as much, and, be realistic with setting your goals. Like, don't try and compare yourself to others is really the takeaway here.
Yeah. But like, in between, did you have like a hard time, not to transfer, but like going from...
Transitioning?
Yeah, transitioning.
Transitioning from school to work wasn't too difficult. I had the most trouble whenever I was in school, especially during COVID. I was in college when the pandemic hit. It was in my freshman year, and the pandemic happened in the middle of my spring semester. And so I went from being a college student to being fully remote, and I still needed to pay for school. So then I ended up taking co-ops and working pretty much full time in addition to doing school. And I didn't drop any credits either. So I was living at home, and this will come up later, but I have 4 younger siblings and I'm the oldest. And so I was helping my mom manage a house with a bunch of younger siblings who were homeschooled and doing remote school or public school remote, like all of us doing school at my kitchen table, like one room schoolhouse style. I'm in college and I have a 10-year-old who's doing long division in the middle of finals week, like all at the kitchen table, trying to help get dinner on the table every night, managing the house. Like my mom didn't expect a lot out of me because she knew I was a college student, but as the oldest, I was, still expected to help a little bit. And I had, my job that I was doing on the side, and my professors expected me to actually do studying at some point in the middle of all of that. I don't think I wrote a word that semester. So I think that was the hardest transition for me in my writing career. And I had started my blog at that point, so I was still trying to get posts out every week.
How are you still alive?
The pandemic was a hard time for everyone, and I saw people posting like, oh, we all have so much free time now that we're home and not commuting to the office. And I'm like, there's free time? Free time? What free time?
I feel like we weren't really that hit because I was in a very secluded area, very up north. But it was still like seeing everyone being like, oh shit, things are going on.
It was definitely an interesting couple years.
It was kind of like hard to imagine, even like looking back. Sometimes I'm just, did this happen, or was this like just a fever dream of some sort?
Mm-hmm. At the time, I was actually working on a different story. I was working on an epic fantasy quest, like political drama, and then the world became a political drama, or I became aware that the world was a political drama because the world's always. And I was like, I need to take a break and write something smaller and more low-key. And so I was at home from school and I was like, I need to make like an emergency the world is ending garden if I need to stay sane. The stores in the grocery store, the shelves in the grocery store are empty. There's no food. The supply chains are broken. I'm making a garden in my front yard. And so I tore up the grass. My mom and dad were a little annoyed with me. And my younger siblings at the time were like 5 and 10. I don't remember. They were pretty young. And I was bribing them. I was like, hey, if you help me weed, I'll tell you a story. And I started telling them Runaways. At the time, it was just an idea I had in my head. But they were hooked on the idea, and so they kept helping me weed, and then I had to write it down. So that's how Runaways started, actually, was during the pandemic. And then I refined it and wrote it down and changed the tense from past tense to present tense and rewrote the whole thing and then sent it to beta readers, and then the beta readers were like, hey, you should actually change this from like a short kiddie fairy tale to like a whole full-blown novel. And then I added 50,000 words to the middle of it, and it turned into this much longer, more involved tale. But throughout the whole thing, my siblings have stayed involved in the storytelling, and I've continued kind of writing it for them. So that's how Runaways came to be. I was bribing my siblings to help me make an apocalypse garden. And now that I've moved away from home for my job, I don't no longer live in that state anymore. My brother has taken over that garden, and so he's still making it.
I feel like that's such a like cool way to like as an origin story to a novel, and like it really shines through. So I'm gonna jump around in the questions I sent you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I feel like now we've touched a lot on your siblings and how they have like played a huge part in this story coming to life. So I was kind of like wondering how your relationship with your siblings compared to the relationship between Hannah and Cecilia in Runaways.
So it's not a direct like one-to-one relationship, of course, because I have 4 younger siblings and Hannah and Cecilia are, just a pair of sisters. So it's not going to be, of course, a direct translation. It's probably the closest to my relationship with my next youngest sister. I have a sister who's about a year younger than me, and we're very close. We grew up doing absolutely everything together. She's only a year younger than me. I can never remember a time without her being like my shadow. And so we are very, very close. And I've been bouncing story ideas off of her since we were kids. And growing up, we would play tons of make-believe games in our backyards. I grew up in and around like the Appalachian Mountains, not like deep in the Appalachian Mountains or anything. I wouldn't call myself part of Appalachian culture, but like kind of at the foothills in like rural Pennsylvania. And we had woods in our backyards. And so my childhood was defined by growing up and stomping around in the woods and creeks and rampaging with my sister, who's a year younger than me, and my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, and playing make-believe games on our tree fort and our tire swing and doing elaborate like stories and me bossing them around and being like, no, you're acting this part and we're going to do this now, and like playing director. And so that was how we spent most of our childhood. And so when that turned into they didn't like to listen to me, I decided I'm going to write stories instead. We actually got along pretty well. I didn't fight with them a lot. My mom would probably claim otherwise, but I still get along really well with my sister, and we're very close. She actually helped me a lot with the formatting. She's very dyslexic, but she still loves to read. And so I tried to format Runaways to be dyslexia friendly. I posted a reel on my Instagram about that recently, like trying to make it so that it's aesthetically pleasing, but still dyslexia friendly. So parts of my relationship with her influenced the relationship between like Hannah and Cecilia. And then like my relationship with my younger 2 siblings was, trying to tell these siblings that I have a pretty big age gap with, a story that they would enjoy, trying to tell these younger children a story that inspired by the fairy tales that I loved growing up, trying to impart these younger kids, like, here's the thing that I really loved. You need to like it too. So I can tell you about it, Here's a book I loved when I was your age. I'm going to force it into your hands and make you read it, so help me. And so I've gotten them successfully into like the Ranger's Apprentice series, which I was a big fan of as a kid, as well as a couple other things. And so it's just interesting seeing how like they play in the same backyard that I did and come up with the same kind of elaborate stories, and how their imaginations have grown and developed based on the media that I've given them as an older sister who has a lot of influence in their tastes. So it's not a self-insert, but it's influenced.
Yeah, and maybe that's like because I don't know if I wrote it in the email, but it really felt like a realistic sibling dynamic. Like I could see myself, and I have a younger brother, like a lot of my own childhood in it, which is why I was like, I think I heard or read somewhere that you have siblings, like before I got to the end of the book. But it was like, she absolutely has siblings.
I love sibling stories, and I find them really compelling because I grew up with 5 siblings, and I was homeschooled. So I didn't go to school and like spend time separated from my siblings in like a class of peers who were all my age. I grew up and I spent quite literally 24/7 with these people. We liked each other and we hated each other, and we were forced to spend time with each other whether we liked it or not. So we were very close. Maybe because of forced proximity, but like Isabella is my best friend, and we were very close because of that. And homeschooling was a good experience for me, and it's part of why I like fairy tales so much is because I read so much growing up. That's definitely a big part of it. And I think it's also writing what you know. Like, even if your sibling relationship isn't quite like Hannah and Cecilia's, I think that everyone can relate to, if you don't have like a sister or you aren't sisters, like I think someone with brothers could read this and still relate to the dynamic between them. I wanted to try and make it relatable in that way.
And you absolutely succeeded. At least from my perspective. You mentioned that you like grew up with a lot of fairy tales. Do you have a point where you like remember this is where it started, or is it one of those things that are like has always been a part of your life?
I think it started very, very early. Probably as soon as like kindergarten, first or second grade. We read a lot of myths and legends and history. We were going to the library like at least once a week, if not multiple times a week, and I was checking out tons and tons of books. I had a library card by the time I was 5. So I remember my mom doing a read aloud of like the illustrated Beowulf to me when I was like 7. And so I hit my Greek mythology phase like super early. I never actually read Percy Jackson, but I could still tell you like every god and nymph and titan by the time I was very young. And so I was reading not only Greek myths, but also Norse myths and Roman myths and Celtic myths and Grimm's fairy tales and all these different folklore. And I was combining them together into these games I was playing in the backyard with my siblings in the American woods that I grew up in. And so I was trying to capture a bit of that nostalgia and that childhood magic of that imagination in the story. At no point I'm trying to claim that the world that I built up in Runaways is mythologically accurate or historically accurate, because you can't really do that with folklore. There's no such thing as one true version of a myth, because there's hundreds of different versions of myths written down over the years from different points in any given culture. And I also smashed together myths from multiple different cultures over multiple different eras of history. And so I'm not trying to claim that it's accurate in any way, but I'm definitely going for that nostalgia angle, that childhood magic angle, that imagination angle, that like all the myths are real kind of angle of capturing that wonder of a kid cracking open a mythology book for the first time and being like, wow, all of this is out there. Look at these stories.
Yeah, I feel like they also like differ in like the same culture.
Yeah, across one region and one story can vary so much from just town to town.
Yeah, I know I like have a Norwegian fairy tale book, and I think there's like 3 stories that are basically the same, but not really.
Yeah, a really good example of that is changelings. Like, changelings exist all across European folklore, but there's not a single canon for the myth of the changeling. Like, there's no good explanation for why the Fae take changelings. There's no good explanation for how to defeat a changeling or how to prevent a changeling from coming into your home. There's no one good way to identify a changeling. There's no one good way to kill a changeling or to return a changeling to the Fae. There's not even any continuity for whether or not Fae take children or infants, or how old the children can be before they're identified, or sometimes they even take adults. Like, changelings are all over the place. And so that was one of the big inspirations for this book, and one of the reasons I wanted to write it was exploring the myth of the changeling and trying to assign some continuity to it in my own kind of world-building way. But you can't do that with a concept that exists all over European folklore from the 1100s to the 1700s. There's no accuracy to a myth that big.
No.
And there's all sort of modern justifications for it, like this could have been used to explain sudden infant death syndrome, or Down syndrome, or autism, or people just being cruel. Like, there's so many different justifications for it too, but that's how myths work and develop over time. And so, yeah, in the story, I'm not trying to be accurate. I'm trying to evoke a sense of nostalgia and wonder and imagination and magic, as any fairy tale should.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of horror.
Just the right amount.
Just the right amount, just a touch, just a spice.
I really feel like changeling they're such an interesting concept, because it's very, like, in recent years that I've heard of they're more acquainted to Fae, because over here everything has to do with trolls. Mm-hmm. Like, pretty much everything. Changelings are trolls. That's like how I grew up with them. So I feel like that's also like interesting to see how there's so many things that are different.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the troll interpretation before too. That's a huge part of it.
Though I feel like almost every fairy tale in like
Modern
Scandinavia is trolls. Mm-hmm. But like, apart from changelings, the Pied Piper also plays like a huge role in Runaways, right?
Yes, and he's a German fairy tale from Hamelin, and we actually have a date to him. He's from 1248, so I'm being very anachronistic here.
But like, do you like know, or did it just happen? Because I also know like sometimes things just, okay, it's this way, but like, why that specific fairy tale?
So the myth of the Pied Piper, the fairy tale behind the Pied Piper, as it's written down, is that it's a story of the town of Hamelin, who had a problem, a rat infestation. And so the Pied Piper comes along. He's this mysterious, possibly fae figure who promises to take care of the rats. And the town at this point is desperate. They've tried everything. And so they promise to pay him a certain sum if he can take care of the rats. So he pulls out his flute, or his pipe, and he plays a song, and the song's magical, and it lures all of the rats into the river where they drown. The town is like, great, you took care of the problem, but they refuse to pay him. And so in an act of somewhat disproportionate retribution, he plays a different song, and the song is so wonderful that it lures all of the children out of the village and into a crack in the mountain under the hill, some would argue to the land of fairy, or just to their deaths, depending on the interpretation of the story, and all of the children in the town go missing. Some people have said that this is a way to explain like a plague or a famine or something else that took the children from the village, but it's recorded in the town's history from 1248 that the Pied Piper came and took the children away. And so as I was exploring the concept of explaining the changeling myth, and why do the fae or the trolls or supernatural entity, insert here, take away children? Why do they take away children? What are they taking away the children for? Do they have a purpose for the children? And, oh, here's a convenient story about a creature taking away children. Maybe I could turn him into a villain. Having a specific character to pinpoint that to would be convenient, wouldn't it? Let's mash those together. So that was how that happened.
But he's not the only fairy tale inspiration, is he?
No, there's many fairy tales here. I liked the idea of just using the Seelie and Unseelie courts as like a representation for good and evil. There's a very famous Scottish fairy tale that also features a kind of changeling element called The Legend of Tamlin. And in this story, there's a woman named, I think her name's Janet, is that correct? I'm blanking. And she owns the forest, Carterhaugh Forest. And she goes into the forest one day, and everyone's warning her, don't go into that forest or else you will be accosted by the fae. Like, you'll be taken by the fae. And she's like, but I own the forest. And she goes in there wearing her green cloak, and this being shows up to her, but it's actually a man named Tamlin. And he goes to her and is like, hey, I'm in trouble. I was taken by the Fae many years ago to be the consort to the Queen of the Fae. And the Queen of the Fae is growing tired of me, and every 7 years they need to make a tithe to hell in order to keep their power. Every 7 years, they don't want to sacrifice one of their own, because Fae are immortal, basically. Why would they want to sacrifice one of their own? So instead, they sacrifice a convenient human, their deed is done, and they can keep their power for another 7 years. It looks like this year I'm up on the docket. Can you save me? And she and Tamlin decide they want to be married and have a child together. She gets pregnant, and she's like, I need to help you. And so when the day comes, it's Halloween, and the procession is happening in Carterhaugh Forest of the Fae, and Tamlin is riding on this horse behind the Queen of the Fae. Bonnie Janet has to like tackle him and wrap him in this green cloak and hold on to him as the Queen of the Fae transforms him into a number of dangerous things, like a bear or a snake or a burning hot coal. And Janet holds on to him, but she can't be harmed because he's the father of her child. And eventually she like dumps him in a well and he transforms back into being a man, and she succeeded in this like trial of love or whatever. And he's allowed to, you know, be saved and come back with her to the human realm. And the Queen of the Fae is like, oh no, I don't have my sacrifice anymore. Had I known that you were going to fall for a human woman, Tamlin, I would have scratched your eyes out a long time ago. And so she wanders off, and Bonnie Janet and Tamlin get to go home and like live happily ever after. But like this idea of like a human being taken by the Fae to be sacrificed to hell is like, oh, I could just take that element of the story to work into the Changeling plot. And so in my story, the Pied Piper is trying to find a sacrifice for the Queen's tied to hell. And so that's a big element of the story. And so that's an element of Scottish folklore that I've worked into a German fairy tale. I also stole the names King Oberon and Queen Titania from Shakespeare. That's from A Midsummer's Night Dream. And I named the Queen of the Fae Queen Mab. And that comes from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet Queen Mab speech. But Mab might be related to Queen Maeve, which is from another, I think, Celtic myth, I think the Legend of Cuchulainn. So there's a lot that's going on here. Lady Bridget is inspired by Saint Bridget because I'm Catholic. And there's a bunch of other myths and legends here. I have all these detailed in a thing that I put up on my mailing list. I've been rambling for a while now, but those are kind of the big ones.
Yeah, because I remember it stood out to me when they decide who to sacrifice. It's not only the Piper who puts his sacrifice.
There's a creature that's supposed to represent werewolves. There's a creature that represents like the fear of the dark. And there's a creature that represents like the White Witch, kind of from Narnia. But there's been a number of different White Witch, the Wild Hunt myth, or the Wild Hunt figure from many different stories about like ghosts coming in the middle of the night during the winter.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is werewolves, or is it werewolves?
Yeah.
So
werewolves and other like half man, half beast kind of creatures.
Yeah, it was more like, I was like, are these also like specific figures or are they concepts? I really liked that it was a bit unclear.
It was one of those, if I ever wrote another story in this world, I have the space to world build this a little bit more, but I don't have the page time for this right now, sort of thing.
But it was one of those like interesting things, which I think also is why it reminded me of Inkheart, because I fell deep into the Black Jacket side of Inkheart fandom. Which is also like, it's such a like it's a huge thing in the book with the Black Jackets, but it's also, in the grand scheme of things, we don't get much details on who these people are.
It's fun to leave those little hints for your readers so that they can make their own headcanons and explore it more and create their own backstories and explore the world for themselves.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that are, for me, it's almost always, that's where I hook on to things and like, I want to know more, but I don't get enough information.
Exactly. It makes the world feel bigger than just the characters themselves.
Absolutely.
I read Inkheart many, many, many years ago. I only read the first book because our library only had the first book. I don't know if the others hadn't come out yet at that point, or if we were just a small library in rural Pennsylvania that didn't have a good fantasy section. But I remember loving it a lot, and I would practice reading under my covers out loud at night to try and become Silvertongue and bring the books to life. And then I'd get caught because I was violating the one rule of reading under your covers at night, which was be quiet. And so reading out loud did not exactly do that for me, but I loved that story so much. And my mom always told me that I read too fast and talked too fast. I loved that story. I loved Dustfinger and how he was such a morally complex character that he just wanted to go home, but he was siding with the bad guys for a bit and then siding with the good guys, and he just wanted to go home. And I think Gwyn was the only other time I ever saw a mustelid as an animal companion in fiction. And I think that seared something into my brain, and that's part of the reason why I made Kit Kat an animal companion that was a weasel in Runaways. And so I did want to mention that. In Runaways, there is an animal companion named Kit Kat who is a least weasel. Not a marten, really tiny least weasel, but Hannah makes friends with it, and he's her aide and partner in crime throughout the story. And so I had a lot of fun writing Kit Kat as an animal companion in the story. Originally, Hannah actually brought along her pet dog, who was a Newfoundland named Willow. And Willow was based off of my cousin's dog, Willow, who was a Newfoundland. And I loved that dog. She was huge. She would drag us around on rollerblades in our grandparents' like development as a kid. But I had so much trouble keeping track of a dog in the original draft of the story, because dogs are pets and they're like loyal and they stay with the main character throughout the whole story, and they need to be like right by their side, and you can't lose track of them. And I've never owned a dog myself, and so I kept losing her. I was like, where's Willow every 3 pages? And so I was like, I need to scrap this. I can't have a dog in this story. I need a wild animal that can pop in and pop out whenever I need to get them off the page, and then pop back in when I need them to be convenient again. And a little crime creature would be perfect for that. I need an animal that can pop in, cause problems, do murder, and then pop back out and go be a wild animal that can run off and not be Hannah's pet. And a murder weasel that can bite rats is perfect for that. So this is a little 3D printed Kit Kat that my husband made for me.
That's so
I have
cool.
not painted it yet. I've been meaning to paint it for like months, but
it will
come.
come.
That's why it will come. That's why Kit Kat's a weasel, and I have grown very attached to my animal companion. So I had a lot of fun writing that in the story, and he's become a fan favorite. So fan among like the couple of beta readers that have read the story so far, but I hope that people enjoy Kit Kat as much as I enjoyed writing him.
Anything, if you want like a complete reason to use Inkart as a comparison title, similar animal vibes.
Yeah. More people should use weasels and mustelids as animal companions. They attack other creatures that are larger than them, so they're great for murder, and they are sneaky, and they're thieves, and they're great for causing problems on purpose. Like, they're everything that you want an animal companion to be. They're smart, they're awful, and they're fun. Like, they're little menaces, and they're loyal, and they're horrible, and I love them.
Kind of like cats.
Yes, they're like slinky cats.
Yeah.
So more people should use muselids as animal companions. That's the soapbox I will die on.
Yeah. Though Kit Kat isn't as moody as Gwyn is in Inkart, because that's probably like the most moody animal companion I've ever read.
Kit Kat has been somewhat trained by 2 side characters named the Twins, and by their leader, Lady Bridget. And so he can communicate through like letter sticks, which is a concept I picked up from another book called The Chronicles of Prydain. In that story, the main character has a pig as his animal companion, and the pig can tell the future. And the pig tells the future by like, the characters will drop sticks on the ground in front of her, and the sticks are carved with like runes, and then she'll like poke at them. And then they can read the runes that the pig pokes at, and then the runes like will tell the future. So I stole that concept, and it's like the runes are inscribed with like tactical information, and then Kit Kat will like poke at the correct runes, and then that gives them the tactical information they need, because Kit Kat's their scout. Ridiculous concepts, but I love the Chronicles of Prydain, so I had to put that in.
And it's perfect. At the same time.
It works. It works so well. It's like the dogs with the like buttons that can say certain words, but just a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, and a bit more
magic.
Convenient in the fantasy setting.
Read the Chronicles of Prydain. It's horribly tropey, but it's so good.
Tropes can be good. They're not always bad.
It was like a Lord of the Rings ripoff from the 60s, but then it got turned into the Black Cauldron by Disney, but the books are better. The books are better.
The books are always better.
Books are always better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting me ramble so much about our favorite lost children's media. My extremely self-indulgent nerdy book.
I love hearing people ramble about things they're passionate about, which is probably like the main reason why I made these like author chats instead of interviews.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I feel like, do you have anything more you want to add about your book?
I'm not sure when this interview will be coming out, but as of time of recording, I should be having the illustrations done within the next week. So hopefully by the time this interview goes up, I will have the book printed and I'll be having proof copies done. And so I will be giving Remilia links for where it can be pre-ordered. Hopefully. Yeah, the book will be available for purchase on October 31st. That is the release date.
I'm looking forward to it. It's
coming
always
up so
the October releases that gets to like, okay, this is this year's favorite book.
The book takes place over Halloween. Cecilia goes missing on the night before Halloween. Hannah goes to start looking for her on the morning of Halloween, and then they come back home on All Souls Day. So the whole thing takes place over the All Saints, All Hallows Eve, All Saints, All Souls feast. So that's the reason why I set it up that way.
Just more proof that Halloween is the best time period in the year. The best season of the year.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that people enjoy reading the story as much as I enjoyed writing it.
Before we go, I realize now I did not send you this question. And that's just, do you have any other authors, like indie or trad authors you would like to highlight?
Okay, I have a shelf of indie authors of books I've bought. These are by far not conclusive because these are only the ones that I own in physical format, but this is the easiest way to do this in a list that I'm not going to forget. Emma Hill, and Maybe They Fall in Love. This is a contemporary romance fantasy about a mind reader. And she's written like a whole bunch of other books in this series that I haven't got around to reading yet. But it takes place like during COVID, and it's like one of the first books I read that actually acknowledges like the existence of COVID in the real world. But also it's a fantasy. Basically the premise is that like during COVID, people figured out that mind readers exist, and like it's the girl dealing with the social consequences of like people finding out she's a mind reader. And also she has severe anxiety. And so it's a really, really sweet romance about mental health. I'm not normally a romance person, but this one genuinely touched me. Emma Hill's a really sweet person. All of these are indie authors, by the way. And so I cannot recommend this enough. White Oaks by Jordan King is a psychological thriller about a veteran in a like psychological hospital. Only there's bad stuff going on. Jordan King is an author who's kind of local to where I am, and I'm going to be in an upcoming anthology with him and a couple other writers. And it's all holiday themed stories. And so if you want to read more stories from him about mental health, healing, trauma, healing, and other concepts like that, check out the anthology that we're going to be in coming up. It's coming out in September, so I have to shout him out. Amanda Aller and the Mothmar trilogy, starting with Daughter of the Sun. This is one of the coolest concepts for a epic fantasy I've ever seen. It's like the world is covered in an eternal winter. There's two different timelines going on. There's a chosen one prophecy, but the prophecy is wrong. You find out in the prologue that the prophecy is wrong. You don't get to hear what the real prophecy is until the end of book 2. But by then it's too late and the protagonist has gone off in the wrong direction. And then there's a secondary timeline with a different character who's becoming like an anti-hero villain, but like it's not her fault. Awesome series. I'm dying to get the third book. It's coming out soon. Amanda Aller. Addison Horner, Marrow and Soul, the Battalion Chronicles, Ghosts, Heist. It's got the main character's named Saffron. She's got a younger brother with Down syndrome. This is the only fantasy I've ever read with Down syndrome representation. It's amazing. You want overprotective older sisters like Hannah, Marrow and Soul, Saffron. Kurt is super sweet. It's got ghosts. It's got heists. It's got like magic schools. like sorting houses. And Addison was also my editor for Runaways. He's amazing to work with. He's super sweet, and he does stuff on Instagram about like how to be a better writer and editor. I think book 3 is coming out soon. I have book 2. Really good books. E.A. Hendricks, space, sci-fi, fantasy, romance. This is called Suspended in the Stars. I have book 2. It's like Star Wars space opera. P.E. Kuntz is one of my best friends from Tumblr. She writes horror, especially werewolf horror. This is also a really good book about siblings. It's about 3 brothers. The middle brother starts becoming a werewolf, and the other 2 need to figure out how to save him because they're not going to kill their brother. What are they going to do? Their brother turns into a werewolf. What are they going to do? They're not going to kill him. So this is a really good book. It's by one of my best friends. R.K. Ashwick, The Stray Spirit. This is about a bard who is trying to like get into the Bards Guild, and his family is like all but disowned him, and a spirit jumps into his lute, and then he needs to go find his ex to help him deal with the spirit that's in his lute. But also the spirit is like a nature spirit, and his grove is dying, and they need to figure out how to save the spirits, and it's got a romance subplot, and it's very found family, cozy fantasy. R.K. Ashwick also has another series that's like D&D side quest potion row, side quest row. It's very cute. So R.K. Ashwick is very good. Timothy Hickson, Catalog for the End of Humanity. This is probably better known as Hello Future Me on YouTube. He also has a series called On Writing and World Building, which is nonfiction. Highly, highly recommend that for writing advice. This is his fiction series. I actually haven't read it. It's an anthology of short stories, but it's on my shelf for TBR. But I really, really recommend his YouTube channel. And then Leor Eisen, 7 Days for Faye. This is a middle grade novella about an autistic girl named Faye who makes a friend, and it's about her navigating the world as it's a contemporary story about an autistic girl navigating the world and making friends and navigating family drama, and just very special interest. So sorry, that was a lot, but I've got a bookshelf for this exact reason.
Mine is also very much at least 50% indie books, so...
Yeah. I have so many more friends who deserve shout-outs, but those are the ones that I have behind me physically right now, so I think that's a good place to start.
We can blame me for not preparing you for this question.
So thank you for giving me the chance to shout out my collection.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for a chance to do that.
It's always nice to just like, here are another indie author who's also very sweet.
I have my bookshelf prizes. There's too many.
There was actually a lot of them that I haven't heard about, or also a lot of them that I have on my TBR.
I try to read across a lot of different genres, so a lot of them are fantasy, but I've been trying to broaden my scopes and read more genres that aren't just fantasy. So hopefully there's something here for everyone.
Hopefully. Otherwise, there's always more indie authors. You can always go look for them.
It's such a wonderful community, and everyone's always so supportive.
Yeah, they are.
Especially you. Thank you for having me here today.
You too, actually. I have a lot of times like take inspiration from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you so much for having this chat with me. It's been really fun. And if you're watching this video, you should absolutely check Etta out on all her platforms. I will link a lot of things down in the description for you.
I have my blog, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm most active on Instagram and Tumblr. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having this talk with me. And also, I'm looking forward to your release of Runaways.
Thank you.